we just did a series where we relied on a rebate plane like this one, and we did a couple of different methods for running the rebates or rebates, but this plane is very nice to have, but you may not have one, and I wanted to show you what to do if you don't have one, and it shouldn't take you very long to do it, is to make one like this. This is just a piece of pine, just 2x4 stud, whatever you want to use, you could use that. Here's another one. This is a piece of sapele mahogany, and I've just used a chisel here and an old chisel iron in this one, and that will do exactly what you want it to do. So you don't have to go to anything complicated. You just have to make your wedge to suit your handle if you're keeping the handle. If you've got an old chisel like this one, the size of the chisel doesn't matter too much, but if you think of the thickness of the wood and the amount you're taking out here, this is just a piece of scrap wood. You're going to have to remember that the wider you go with your chisel, the more you're going to take out. So you'd have to make the stock of the plane wider. But beyond that, I would just use a 1/2-inch chisel. On the project we were making, we didn't use anything more than 3/8. So that's about 10mm by 10mm rebate. So that worked for us. A 1/2-inch chisel worked fine. So let's start out with what we need just to get the main body of the plane made, like this one here. I've got 2 pieces of wood. This is for the wedge, and this one is for the main body of the plane. So what we're going to do first, we're going to determine which part of this plane is. So I'm referring to this. This is going to be the heel of the plane. So this is the toe, which is the front of the plane. I want to measure in from the heel 6 inches, use the 45 angle from my combination square just to run a line. This line is purely for my guidance. It's 45 degrees there. So 45, that's going to be the bedding angle for my chisel iron or plane iron. You could use a piece of steel as well if you wanted to, but that's what I'm going to bed my chisel against. And then I've got this wedge that's going to form the angle for the top of the groove that I'm going to cut. This is a tapered groove like this that houses the wedge and the chisel. So this goes square across. This bed is dead square across here and dead square across here. Now what I did is I made an angled piece of wood as a template. This is a 1 to 4.5 ratio. So I came from the very tip of my piece of wood, measured 4.5, measured up from here 1 inch, and I struck a line through here. You could go 9 inches and do 2 inches up here, and that would be even more accurate. But you want a 1 to 4.5 inch, 1 to 4.5 ratio for this, and that's going to give you the angle that you want roughly for the bed, for the top of the recess that you're going to make. Now that angle is going to be affected, let me show you, by the chisel. Almost all chisels are not parallel from here to here, so this angle is going to vary, but I'll show you what we do to get the exact pitch. So this is my angle here, so I'm going to put this angle directly onto here. Now I measured at 1 inch from the end here, and that's about where I want to start this, the point that I want to start this second bevel. So I'm going to come on here with the top of the recess there. Then I want to place this against this, and I can't because this little knob here gets in the way, so I have to place this with the point of my tip flush at the bottom, and I am bedded against the top of that line. So I go here. Now what that's given me is the combination of the 1 to 4.5 ratio plus the taper of my chisel. So that's the exact recess that I want. Now on the top here, I want this to be angled. I'm going to exaggerate this. It's going to be angled this way. That means that when I drive my wedge in, that's going to have an angle on the top, and that will tighten up as I drive the wedge, it'll tighten right into the corner and keep the wedge in place so it won't move out. So what I did there is I set just an angle finder, a protractor like this, to the 100 degrees here. It's 100 degrees this side, 80 degrees this side, so whichever you use. So that's giving me the angle on there. Now I want to set this angle on here for the knife wall. I want to set exactly to that line. So here I'm setting this to the pencil line. And we can micro adjust this. If we're slightly off when we cut, we can micro adjust the wedge to suit. So this is just going to give me the first knife wall that I want here. There's one. Then I switch to my 45 for the main bedding angle. The bedding angle is the part that rests the blade against it. So that goes on there. So I'm exactly where I need to be. Now I'm going to use I've got the protractor on the top. I don't have it on the bottom. Do I need it on the bottom? It just helps if I do. So I'm switching to the opposite side, resetting this to 80 the opposite way, making my mark on there. So again, I've got that set, and I can use that as a guideline. The next thing is I need a gauge, and I'm going to set this to the chisel, the width of the chisel, dead on the very point of there. So I'm setting that. I've got that. I'm just over, but it won't matter if I'm slightly over, and if this recess is slightly too deep, I can go in and plane this face down after. But this line now goes from the open face of the recess right between those lines, like this. So I've got the depth, and then I go on this side and do the same on the top there. Can you see that? There. So this part is the part that's going to come out. Now when I actually do my recess, I'm going to use this. If you don't have one of these, you can just literally go just with your chisel. So I have this plane set to get the exact depth. You can use a poor man's router for that too, which is just a block of wood with a chisel through it. Very inexpensive. I suppose this is a poor man's rebate plane. Poor man's rebate plane. Okay, so I'm going to cut the square one first here, just to give you the lesson. So here I go in with my chisel, just pop that knife wall. And I may as well do this one while I'm at it too. So into here. Just take out that so you have a definite step down for your saw. Now I'm going to turn this around because I want to see where I'm going. You'll still be able to see on this side. So I'm going to go just above that line, hopefully, and stop where there's just enough. Good sharp tenon saw here. Right in on that knife wall. Can you see that? Now, instead of cutting dead square to the line, I'm going to recommend that you angle slightly away from the line as you progress the cut, and then chisel into it to give you an exact bed. So I'm down to the line this side, and I am close to that side. A little bit more. And then this one is the more difficult. What I recommend with this one is that you go, let me see, if I go, no, that is the best side, I think. I want you to be able to see along this knife wall when I drop the saw in. I'm going to start on the back edge, see this, with 2 or 3 strokes, then I drop my saw into the kerf. Once I've gone in 3 or 4 cuts like that, then I take my saw out, place it back in, and I try to place it at a commensurate angle to my guideline, like that. Just stop just above your line, like that. That's the sewing done. Now here, it's better, definitely better, to take out some of the bulk from above by chopping into it here. Like that. That. Oops, already going ahead of me. I love this pine for this. Pine will make a fine plane. It's not going to be super long lasting, but it will certainly last you for a few years. Here I'm going bevel down to get me lower into there. See? Now I can take out some of the waste with a narrower chisel, probably a 1/2 inch here. So just chisel along there. Just take out the bulk of the waste. I'm almost down to my line on this side. The grain is running away from me, so I have to work into that a little bit. I'm not actually going into my gauge line, I'm staying above it because I want a guaranteed depth, I think. So I'm going to use the router to get me exactly where I need to be. Now if you don't have a router, it doesn't matter, just go with your chisel and get it as accurate as you can. Narrower chisel still to go right in between this narrow throat area here. Something's rattling to my right as well. My saws hang on the bench there. Very convenient. So here, now I did set this before, so I'm all ready to depth, but what I'm going to do is instead of going in with take a lot off, I'm going to just go down incrementally in 1/2 turns of the depth adjuster, because it gives me a nice clean surface that I want. And I can see my depth line fine. If you're careful, you can go all the way through. It's not likely to burst unless you've got a dull plane and you're not feeling exactly. I can tell I'm already to depth there, which is where I stop my line just above the line. So I'm going into the corners with my knife just to give me a little bit more depth. Taking out the corners first, can you see that? And then just moving on the mid bit. Now I feel like I'm taking a little too much off there, so I'm coming from this side because I already have my depth set and I don't want to alter it. There's the depth. Now how deep is that compared to the chisel? So this is where the chisel is going to be. I'm still too high here. So I'm going to change this depth a little bit more. Careful not to go too much. I'd rather not plane off the surface unless I have to, but it doesn't really matter. Now it's flush, so I'm right where I need to be. One thing I haven't checked here is this squareness, and I think I'm going to show here if I can just get in there. Can you see? Right into the corner here, I'm hoping you'll see a slight gap. Is that possible? Just, you can see a gap at the top, right in the very top. And I think that's what I was aiming for. So I want to chisel down there. So I'm nice and tight in the vise. And I'm going right on my knife wall, and there, can you see that? I'm just chiseling out to I'm square. like that. And that way I have a very pristine bed on there. Can you see there? Now I could take my router again, because that is going to go to the same depth. Watch here. And I just take out that internal corner, just like that. Very pristine. So now I know that I'm pretty sure that I am square right the way into the corner there. So when I put my chisel on here, I'm ready to go. So now I have to work on the wedge that I had. Now this isn't going to help me because this little knob on the top, this bolster part of the chisel, is in the way. But you can see now where this is starting to get the combined angle that I wanted close to. It's not exact, but it's close enough for me to work on this piece of wood. So I can use this pattern that I made here now to get the angle on this piece of wood, the blank for my wedge. Let me put some of this out of the way here. So I'm going to make my wedge from this piece here. So I'm flushing the very point of this. I already planed this to get the exactness that I wanted. So I'm flushing the bottom edge and then running my pencil on here. So what size of wood did I use for all this? Let me tell you. This is 1 1/4 by 2 3/4 by 10 inches long. This one is just over 1/2 inch. I wanted 5/8 of an inch. Even though my recess is only 1/2 inch, I wanted it wider, and I'll show you why in a short while. I've got 2 1/4 by 10 inches long. So anything around that, scraps of wood will work fine. So this is the piece I want here. So I'm going to saw down here with a handsaw. Just leave it fat. I'm going to turn over just because I don't have to meet up exactly in the middle on this. Oops. Now just a good sharp plane here. Try and keep to your line. If you need to take more off here, just take an extra shaving, but you want it straight. Now if I can see the line, I think that's close enough. Can you see how I'm slightly out of parallel here? I'd rather try it in the plane at this point with the blade in situ on one here, just to see how close I feel I am. I've got this little knob on there in the way, so I may go in now and alter that and put a little extra dip in, a little bit like juggling with swords when you're using the actual blade. Can you see right in here, this little knob here is catching on the wood, so it's stopping it from seating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this. Now if you were using a chisel, you may have to take out quite a bit here. I don't have to take very much to get this down. So I'm going to take this and just finger guide this and this. Let's see if this works. This might not work. If this didn't work, you would just go with your coping saw. So let's just see which way. The grain's working just fine for me here. Can you see how the grain is splitting just fine? So bevel down, split off the excess, and then just clean up. Now you could, like I say, you could use a coping saw then follow up with a rasp or something like that, that would be fine. This is just a poor man's rebate plane, so we don't have to worry too much. Now we're getting near. Can you see we've got this working fine now? We've got nice tightness. I've left the blade just slightly shy of the sole here, so I can tighten this up with a hammer now, and I can feel for how it tightens. Now it's tightening fine on that part, but can you see it wants to twist away from this inside corner? Can you see I've got a gap here and a gap here? That's because it's binding only on this very top corner. So I'm going to work on that now. I'm going to take the blade out here, hit here. That will loosen. So now I have to make the top of this commensurate to this underside of here. Now I didn't settle that top angle on the inside of there, so I should do that now. So you can see. So I take my chisel in a pairing gesture like this, right on the top edge where the knife wall is. So I'm actually on the knife wall. Just pare away and establish that bevel. Follow with this one and with this one. And we've got exactly the same as we did before on this one. Now we've got the same on this one. Go back in with your router. Just using the corner of your router just to clean out the inside corner. Or a chisel would work fine. You could just go with a narrow chisel like this just to clean out that inside corner. That would be fine. So now I want this bevel on here, on the top of here, to match. You can see it does not match right now. So, and you can see I'm proud here, which is great. So into the vise. Now I could give you a definitive angle for this, but there's no point because there's no guarantee that your top bevel on the underside of this opening is going to be exactly to that angle. So this is the best way to go. Take a look here. Looking pretty good, I think. I have no corner. I think that's pretty good. Maybe one more. Usually take one more shaving and then you find out you've gone wrong. It feels pretty nice to me. I'm going to break this edge here just with one shaving, no more, because you don't want any shavings getting into the corners. So here and here. That's great. Can you see right in the corner? This is the angle that I wanted to correct, make sure. Now I'm pretty good here, but it seems like this inside corner may just be holding me off. And because I use the plane, I'm pretty confident that this is dead true. So I have a feeling that this may not be dead true in here. So what I'm going to do is go back in with my chisel, and I'm going to eyeball down that face, and I can see a slight twist in the bed there. So I'm going to go in here, chisel under my chin, and just pare down, using my upper body like a huge weight, like that. Offer the chisel back, the wedge back, and now I've got it closed up on that edge, and I'm quite happy with this. Let's see what happens when we tighten this in here. See whether I'm still happy with it. Pull that back so the blade isn't protruding past the bottom, and then cinch it tight. Now remember that even if you were out of exact angle, just tightening this wood will compress a lot more here than it will here, or it would compress down there if it was out. So don't get caught up worrying too much. But look how all of this now is registered here, registered here, registered on the underside, and I have that there. So this is going to tell me I can cut this off, but I'm actually going to cut this shy of there by a little bit more. Here, I want to put something like this. Again, none of this is critical, but I want to put a wedge with a head on it here. And this is so that when I remove the wedge, sometimes you strike here to withdraw the iron and the wedge together. Here, I can go in with that Warrington hammer, which is why we have Warrington hammers, is to tap that wedge out using the underside of this. So this is coming off here, and I strike here to loosen the wedge and the steel blade, the cutting iron, and that should, which it didn't, loosen the wedge. Boy, that's great. That's what you want, isn't it? So I can tap here, just for now. So I'm going to cut this off here. And just slide it in there, just to give you a little bit of a stop to cut against. I would go as square as I can. It doesn't have to be exact. There's not much going to be left of this in a minute. We're going to cut this to shape. Let me see. Can I do this to camera so you can see? I want to come down here. I think I can. This is going to come here. This comes up here. And we end up with something like this for the main wedge. Don't take too much out here. Where did it go? Take out the bulk first, like that, and then use your body to pair using the bevel. I'm riding that bevel, making sure the whole bevel is in contact, and then I just follow that round. And then here, just right on the very top, great. Cut this off. You don't even try to cut off the excess. Like that. And then this last bit again. You can come with your paring chisel, a 1-inch chisel. Bevel edge chisel will work fine. Just take off the excess and then work down like this. Here you feel it going hard, just go with 1/8, quarter, 3/8, and a 1/2 inch. And that's got me roughly to shape. I can shape the rest of it with a rasp or wrap a piece. If you don't have a rasp like I've got here, just wrap a piece of sandpaper, coarse sandpaper, around a flat piece of wood and use it exactly the same way as I'm using here. Just exactly, it'll end up with exactly the same results. There is the wedge shape that I want for my recess. So this now goes in here. Where is my iron? The iron goes in here like this. And I'm close to where I want to be. Now I'm going to thickness this here. So I slide this back in here. Now it's not going to be even, but as long as it's pressed down into the body of the plane, watch this. Just take your stock, wedge it in the vise, take off a few shavings. Now I'm resting the heel of my plane on this side here. Can you see that? So I keep going. Now I'm very close to flush. I'm not close at the top here. So now I'm perfectly flush. I can't feel a difference except in texture alone. Back the iron off. And there you have it. There we are to depth. So a little tap on here just to loosen it. Now let's see with that close proximity what we've got in here. Now can you see how crisp and clean these lines are? Beautiful. And I didn't even tighten it. When I tighten this, you can see it closes everything up. This is perfectly slick, smooth. Now here, this feels like it's protruding just a little bit because I did take a shaving off this face. So I want it flush. It's not the wood that's protruding, it's the iron slightly, ever so slightly. So this is just a gnat's whisker really. So slacken, just turn a quarter or even an eighth of a turn and take that down like that. To perfect the depth, now it's perfectly flush. This will be slightly less, but I'm not going to worry about that. So there, I'm close to finishing now. I don't want this wedge to go past the end, but I want to keep it about that length. I've got one more thing to do. The wedge goes in this way. A pencil should suddenly appear right here. So this, now I want to go from a feather edge here, close to, and I want to come up something like this. That means the shaving, when it's first coming from the blade, it comes into that edge and it's forced out of the side of the plane. So what we're going to do is just take a block of wood, place it in the vise near to the top, and this is where you can lose this very edge. Don't worry about it because I'll show you how this works. So I'm going to go with the bevel up first and take that down, take the bulk of it out, and even now I can go with the bevel up just for a little bit, just to get rid of some of the waste. See it? Is this clear? Yeah. Then bevel down. I'm going right into the face of my vise. It's not going to hurt it. But if you're bothered about that, put a piece of wood in between the block and the vise jaw to protect it. I've got rhino plywood in here. See how it's twisting around? It's not supposed to do that really. So I go close to, so that I actually finished on a feather edge here. So the top of this wedging action keeps this feather edge against the face of the bottom of the recess when it's tightened. Let me show you. So this goes in here. This goes in here. You are making a plane, everybody. You are going to be making a wonderful plane. And is it going to work? I couldn't tell the difference between this and my oldest planes, my bestest planes, my metal planes. I feel like I could probably use this for a shoulder plane without hesitation. So there, can you see what we've got now? This is where the shaving comes out. I guess I could just give you a quick demo on a scrap of wood. Let's just see where we are, just to get the plane set, and then we'll add a fence to guarantee. So there's no shaving right now. So what I do is I hit here, test, just about, can you see it? Just a shaving, just a very thin shaving, a little bit more. Then tighten here. Ooh, would you look at this? This is not quite set, but close. Imagine making a plane like this. Watch this now. Yep. Oh. We are getting shavings, my friends. So we're close. Now we need to put a fence on here, and we need to make sure, one thing I didn't check, to make sure that the bottom of my plane was square to the side here, and I felt like I was. Yeah, I'm good. I'm pretty good. So I'm just going to take this out now. I'm going to show you how to make the fence. So we're ready to do that. So to remove this, strike a couple of times here. I might use a soft-faced hammer like this, save the end of my plane, and then with the heel, this is what I was telling you about the Warrington hammer, the heel of the hammer goes in there, or the tongue goes in there, a couple of little taps, and you have your iron out, ready for sharpening. The next stage in the plane for me is going to be to attach a fence that moves, and what I did here, I just measured up from the end of the blank, from each end, 1.5 inches, here and here, and then I added 3/16 to get these two outside parallel lines, and then I split the difference in between and pulled a line across with the square just to get the center like that. This piece of wood is the same length as my plane, and it's the same thickness, width of my plane, and anything will work. This is 3/8 of an inch thick. That's plenty thick. You could go with 1/2 inch. I wouldn't go any thicker, not really necessary. So I'm placing this on here. What I did is, from this outside edge, I took a line like this and just pulled a 5/16 from the outside edge of the plane like this. And then where the crosshairs came for the middle line and here, I just took at the point of a compass, a nail would work, just to center that right on those center lines there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this. Let me draw it here. I'm going to drill a hole here. It's going to give me that, and I'm going to remove this midsection so that this will slide along when I put 2 screws in, 1 screw in either end and a washer on there. This will just be a movable fence, and it'll give me adjustment anywhere within 1/2 inch, which is all I need. So I'm putting this is the outside, so I've got my recess this side. I'm placing this on here, and I'm going to drill a pilot hole all the way through here and into the main body of the plane. So I'm going to put this in the vise here like this. And that gives me the center of another hole that I'm going to drill in a minute. So I'm dead centered. So I'm aligned there. Now then I need this. So I've got a very small drill. This is about 1/16, I think, but yeah. So I go in here, and on that one side, drill a hole all the way into the stock of the plane, and the same on this one. Just those 2 holes alone. You don't have to do this side at this point, anyway. So you can see now how these line up there. So I've got dead center in both places. That means that they will line up. So now I'm placing this aside. I'm going on here, just a block of wood, just to stop this side from splitting out on the outfeed. I've got, what size is this one? I've got a 3/16 brad point bit. So you can see it has a spike on here. That centers this in that hole there. So get my speed up. Drill all the way through. Now I'm going to do this one as well. See that? And then this one too. Not an exact science. Don't worry about it. If you deviate from these lines a little bit, it's not going to stop the plane from working one bit. So in this one, I'm going to counter bore those two holes with a bit that will, if you look at this now, if I hold this behind here, I think you can see that I have it, the threads from the screw are on either side of that middle. So that middle section is just going to take out the bulk of the shaft of the screw. And I want that because it'll stop the wood from splitting. So into those two holes, just drill down whatever depth you feel will take the bulk of the screw thread. While you've got it there secured in the vise, take the screw and thread the walls of this like this. And just take it down like that to the depth that it'll be going when it's done. That will just tap the walls of the wood and get you ready for when you're going to put the fence in place and it's a finished job. Down, down, down. Just until it's cinched tight, because you've got a washer in between here, and you can always tighten it later as well. That's that bit done. What I like to do is, when you put a screw in there, it just raises a few little hairs on either side, and will stop the fence from riding smoothly. So this is the next bit. Now we've got to take out this middle section. I put lines on your side so you can see what I'm doing. Like this. And this. That then takes the main body of the screw. So what you may want to do, I think I would, is just take a knife wall here. Oops. And here. Just to stop it from fraying on the outside. Same on this side here. Flip over and do the same again, like this. And the best way to remove that middle section is going to be probably with a coping saw. And if you don't have a coping saw, I'll do one without and one with. How's that? And then, so what we do is we go in here. I need a 1/2-inch chisel, so into here like this, flick and into here, flip over, same again. Very quick, very neat, very precise. Actually, neater than the coping saw, most likely. Then chisel into your knife wall. Like that. Now we're probably close to 1/4 of the way through already, just with those two little taps, because pine's quite soft. Don't go too hard. In the vise. Now, this is something you may not have, is a 1/8 chisel. You may have, or this is actually a 1/16 chisel, so this is even narrower. Just take out the waste wood, really. Oops. Like that. Just tease out the fibers. It's just taking out as much resistance as you can. And the same again on this now. Gently, listening all the time for that dead sound, like that. So we're through, we can hear it, can't we? I think we're already there. I'm going to just clean up that knife wall a little bit. And we're ready, that's already through. So just poke out the waste wood. Now see how neat we got that? Very nice and crisp, clean, neatness. This is what we're looking for. This is accuracy. All the time we're looking for accuracy. This goes in here, you can see how the fence will move The washer will take up a lot, give a bit more resistance to the wood, and then you can cinch that up and you've got. Now, what about the coping saw? Not quite as quick and clean, I don't think, but we'll do it anyway. So here's what you do. You take out the blade, you work it on the push stroke. That's the best way, like that. Thread it back through the hole and put it in place. You can see this is a little bit awkward, but we'll get there. Here we go. Cinch it tight again. That's stretching the blade. In the vise. And then pull it tight against the roof of the wall. Take out the waste. Gently and carefully, like that. And now I still have cleanup to do. But that's all right. So here on the knife wall, and I go all the way through like that. So I get a continuous cut, and I end up with a nice clean wall. Yet again, I have a nice job done. So, all right, now then, hopefully we measured everything well, because this should really come out identically. Whichever way I turn this, it should come out identically. Can you see inside there? You can see it aligns. Okay, now if I turn it end for end like this, it should still align if I've worked accurately, and you can see it does. So that just shows how good I am at this. No. All right. So now they've got the two screws. We can put those in place. This is wonderful. This is a really good tool. This is you taking dominion over stuff you thought you had to buy. I love using this plane. And you know, the pine ones work as well as the hardwood ones. I just don't think they would hold up as long. No doubt about that. But they still get you where you want to be. And they don't have to be this long. They can be much smaller than this. There you have your fence in place. This is your blade. One thing we haven't done, and I'd like to do that very quickly, is on a plane, having something here to push against will help. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little recess in there. This is fine. We really don't have to do much here. We could go in with a little nub there. And here, I just want to take these back corners off. So let's do this one first and see how we can make this feel a little bit more comfortable in use. So saw down just above that line. This is where you have a bevel edge chisel. Now I've got a nice wide one, but a 1-inch chisel will do this, even though this one actually does nearly the whole width. It does do the whole width. You do have to be very careful not to go below that stop cut, because if you go below and keep going, you're going to burst off the whole of the front of your plane. So, being a coward that I am, I'm going to stop there. Now this next bit may not be quite so easy because it's a much steeper cut. So what I might do there is go in with a tenon saw like this. Take out the bulk of it. Start high up, get your grain direction, like that, like that. And then take out some of this here. bevel down. See, I'm using the bevel to my advantage. So here, sounds nasty, but it works. Can't lever too much on this, on pine, because that is a little bit fractious there. So I've just got rid of the bulk of my waste wood there. And I keep working down this corner, like this. And I've really got what I need there, but to make it smooth and comfortable, I'm going to go with a rasp. And again, sandpaper on a block of wood would work just fine. It would do the same thing, except it might not be quite so fast as the rasp, especially a rasp like an Oro rasp like this one. Very nice. Now I guess you could just leave the rough surface there. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Same on the end here. Take out some of that bulk, a little bit like this. And these back corners, definitely take these off. You could knock these off like this. That would be fine. So you create a sort of a round there. Or again, take it off with the bolt like this. You could use the rasp, of course, like this. I like rasps. They're very handy to have in the workshop, but they can be expensive. But if you use them a lot, they're definitely worth having. There, now this feels like my plane should feel. It's feeling comfortable. Knock a few corners off here just to make it comfortable, that's all. Sand it, make it smooth, put some finish on it, whatever you want. Now this is obviously going to bite into this fence a little bit, but don't worry about it. You can either take a little bit out, but I wouldn't even bother. So shall we try this plane now? So what we don't have is a depth stop. You can put depth stops on the side of the plane in exactly the same way if you want to. I prefer not to, but that's just me. So here, whatever width you want the rebate to be, set one of those to that depth like this, and just slide the stock of the square up against there. Tighten it here. Do you see that? Just tighten this so you've got this distance exactly where it needs to be. Move this to the opposite end. Squeeze together and cinch tight. And you've got the width of your rebate set. This isn't protruding yet, I don't think. So, piece of wood here just to give you a little idea. Now I haven't cinched this tight enough yet. You want to tap the side of your iron here just to make sure it's seated. Cinch this semi-tight like this. Try it on the piece of wood. Oh, would you look at that? Look at that. Look at that. There we got a whole shaving. Isn't that something? This plane has never been used before. It's already working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set just a little bit more depth here, just a little tap, like that. And I'm going to feel, would you look at this? So I'm going to tighten here because that also, when I tighten this, it will drive the wedge slightly too. There. So now it's set. The plane iron is set. So I've got my fence against here. Everything's... Ooh, look at this. Would you look at that? Is that not working so beautifully? We didn't have very much to do. Full length, full width shavings, and a pristine rebate, second to none. And look at the shaving just twisting right out, curling like a pig's tail. And look what we got. Look what we got. A beautiful, sharp, crisp rebate. This is you making your plane. This isn't me now. This is, the gift is transferred. You have the gift. You start working it, make your own plane. It doesn't have to be fancy, just an old chisel. You can even put your chisel in, and a piece of pine from a lumberyard that may cost you 30 or 40p, and you're on your way.